Welcome to Cajun Case Files. I'm your host, Britt Lafaso. Each week, we will take you deeper into a case here in Acadiana. In some cases, you may be the missing link investigators need to help solve a case. This week, we begin with the story of Ella Goodie from Scott, Louisiana.
KLFY uncovers and digs deeper into the untold stories of missing persons, strange disappearances, cold cases, and mysteries from the heart of Acadiana. This is Cajun Case Files, a KLFY Plus exclusive.
Ella Goodie's story begins on March 9th, 2022. She is 33 years old and lives in the city of Scott in Lafayette Parish. She's a proud mother to her two kids, a 13-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. To get by and make extra money to support herself and her children, Ella works as a contract driver with Lyft. But she'd recently ditched the app and started just driving people around for cash. On this particular day, on Wednesday, Ella tells her kids and her family she is going to be driving someone from Lafayette Parish to Houston, Texas. It's for work, so her family doesn't know who this person is. And they're not fazed by it. She's been driving people around as a job for a while. She kisses her daughter and her son goodbye, and since it's only a 3-hour drive to Houston, she tells them she'll be back by that night. Ella gets in her black Audi and leaves home. But Ella never comes home that night. Her calls are going straight to voicemail. Thursday comes, then Friday, then the weekend. By Monday morning, her family is in full-blown panic mode. On Monday, March 14th, Ella's brother heads straight to the Scott Police Department to report Ella officially missing. Scott Police get straight to work, and pretty quickly, they get a lead. Traffic cameras pick up Ella's vehicle, her little black Audi. Scott Police say it's seen on Wednesday, March 9th, the day that she told her family she was leaving to bring that passenger to Houston. Ella's vehicle is spotted on I-10 that afternoon, heading in the direction of Texas. And 12 hours later, her vehicle is seen again on I-10, this time heading back into Louisiana. But here's the thing. Ella's family says if she did make it back to Scott, she never contacted them. What you are wanting to know, I can imagine, is was Ella in her vehicle whenever it came back into Lafayette Parish? Well, we don't know. The windows on Ella's car are extremely tinted, so you cannot see inside. Here's Scott Police Chief Chad Leger.
We know it's her vehicle. Due to the tinted windows, it's undetermined if she was driving or if anyone was with her at that time on March the 9th. We do have one picture where you can see one hand on a steering wheel, but it's undetermined if it's a male hand, a female hand, or if it's her or not. You can't see any faces or anything of the vehicle. Whoever's in the vehicle, I should say.
So the initial thinking is, okay, maybe Ella is back in Scott. She's just laying low for a little while, maybe blowing off some steam. But Ella's family is surprised to hear from the Scott Police Chief that her vehicle was spotted again the next day on Thursday, back in Texas, this time just north of Dallas. Dallas is more than 3 hours away from Houston, where she was initially supposed to drop off that passenger. And her family says Ella never mentioned needing to drive to Dallas. Here's Chief Leger again.
We have not been able to pick up on her vehicle since. So we have a gentleman that is a potential person of interest that may have some knowledge of her whereabouts or what's going on. That's still an investigation. We're not releasing that information at this time, but the investigation is still ongoing.
One can only assume that person of interest is the passenger that Ella was initially supposed to drive to Houston on Wednesday, but police don't give us a name yet. 2 days after this interview with the police chief and 7 days after Ella initially left for Houston, Scott Police announced their person of interest. His name is Brandon Francisco. He's 36 years old and he's from Mansura, Louisiana, a small town about an hour north of Lafayette. Brandon is believed to be the last person in contact with Ella before she went missing. So this is probably the passenger that Ella was initially supposed to drive to Houston on March 9th. 2 days after Scott Police announced Brandon as a suspect, the FBI and the U.S. Marshal Service are brought in to help in the investigation and the search for her. While Scott Police, the FBI, and U.S. Marshals continue their investigation, Ella's family feels like they can't just sit around and do nothing, waiting and hoping for any new information, because they feel that Ella could be in danger. So they start their search of their own. Ella's family told us they pinged her cell phone, and they say her phone last pinged near the town of Iowa. We know Ella probably traveled down I-10 past Iowa to get to Texas, so that's where they search. Dozens of people help Ella's family in this search, using any tools they have at their disposal, like four-wheelers, to search broader areas. Ella has been missing for 9 days at this point, and Ella's friends and family say they feel like they're not getting much help from authorities with the boots-on-the-ground search for Ella.
There's a lot of people that went missing in Lafayette, and they had way more help than we getting with Ella. They had airplanes in the sky, dogs on the ground, and they had boats in the water. We don't have nobody.
Civil rights organizations and community activists from across Lafayette Parish step in. Volunteers spend hours out in the streets giving up their own time to hand out flyers. They want to make sure people see Ella's face and know she is still missing.
Can you share this with people, please? Trying to find Ella. She's been missing since March the 9th.
Hello, help find Miss Ella. Hey, help find Miss Ella.
Sometimes it takes a village, sometimes it takes a community to protect each other. And while we may not know her personally, but she could be our daughter, she could be our sister, she could be our mother. And since this information has surfaced about her disappearance and the suspicious circumstance of her disappearance, we believe that all of us, the whole community, should be alert and aware and conscious, because who knows? No one knows who might get information.
Coming up, we learn this person of interest has a dangerous past. On March 25th, 16 days after Ella first went missing, there was a break in the case. The man that Scott police announced as a person of interest is arrested, but not for any charges relating to Ella's case. 36-year-old Brandon Francisco is actually already wanted in another parish. You see, the day that Ella Goodie went missing, the day she was supposed to drop off Brandon Francisco in Houston, Brandon had a court appearance in Rapides Parish and did not show up. He was supposed to appear in front of a judge for charges of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, armed robbery, unlawful use of a movable, and obstruction of justice. Instead of going to court that day, Brandon got Ella to bring him to Houston. Ella's family says Ella had no idea about Brandon's dangerous past. They say Ella knew nothing about these charges and that Brandon was supposed to be in court that morning. Regardless, this is the person Ella allowed into her vehicle on March 9th and then was never seen again. But remember, Brandon was never named a suspect in Ella Goodie's disappearance, only a person of interest. Scott police knew he must have some kind of information, but they could not find him. So on March 25th, U.S. Marshals get a tip about Brandon's whereabouts because at this point, Brandon is a wanted fugitive. The tipster tells Marshals that he's in St. Joseph, Missouri, and they were right. Marshals find Brandon's vehicle and pull him over. He resists arrest, but he can't fight back and is taken into custody. He's held in the Buchanan County Jail without bail for his charges in Rapides Parish, Louisiana. Before we get into the attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and armed robbery charges that Brandon was arrested for, I want to go back even further into his criminal history. It begins in 2008, when Brandon was only 22 years old. Reports show in 2008, Brandon was charged with attempted murder. We got in touch with a woman who was friends with Brandon's victim.
He broke into my girlfriend's house, stabbed her 23 times, and left her for dead.
According to a newspaper article from 2008, 21-year-old Brandon was dating a 17-year-old woman named Tatiana Jacobs. But by August of 2008, they'd broken up. Around 5 a.m. on August 4th, 2008, reports say Brandon broke into her apartment in Marksville, Louisiana. Jacobs was asleep with her 2.5-year-old daughter. Police say Tatiana and her young daughter were sleeping. Brandon began stabbing Tatiana. In total, he stabbed her more than 20 times. But miraculously, Tatiana survived. Tatiana's friend, Selena Charles, remembers the day well. It's the day her hometown newspaper in Marksville, Louisiana read, 17-year-old mother stabbed by boyfriend. Brandon was charged with attempted second-degree murder, aggravated battery, criminal damage to property, and child desertion. Again, this was 2008. It's unclear what happened after these 2008 charges, but we know that 10 years later, Brandon Francisco was not in jail or prison. Because on December 24th, 2018, Christmas Eve, Brandon pops up on law enforcement's radar again, this time in a small town called Cheneyville in Rapides Parish. There's a shooting that puts one person in the hospital fighting for their life. And authorities say Brandon is the suspect. Court records allege the shooting was the result of some kind of drug debt. A week later, on New Year's Eve, Brandon Francisco, who is 33 years old at this point, is arrested. He's charged with attempted second-degree murder, armed robbery, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, obstruction of justice, and criminal conspiracy. But Brandon somehow evades a long prison sentence yet again. According to KALB, a mistrial is declared after a legal dispute over evidence from one of Brandon's prior convictions. And guess what happens? The district attorney's office agrees to dismiss his charges of conspiracy to commit second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. But he was not totally off the hook. Brandon was supposed to appear in court on March 9th, 2022 for more charges relating to this case. He was still facing those charges of attempted murder and armed robbery. But that's the day he bailed on court and convinced Ella Goodie to bring him to Houston, Texas. And Ella was never seen again. So after all these charges Brandon has faced in the past, Ella's friends and family are nervous. This is the man Ella was last seen with.
Right now, he's incarcerated. But in 2008, he also got a charge for carnal knowledge of a juvenile. Then 2018, I want to say, he got another attempted murder charge. And then here on March 9th, Ella comes up missing and then he's arrested. He's the last person that was seen with Ella. It's a lot of red flags. Me personally, I don't think that he should have been out at all anyway, and now this with the 2018 situation, it goes to show you that this man is a threat to society. He doesn't even need to be home. He's better off locked away.
One thing investigators have not found is Ella's vehicle. We know she left Lafayette Parish in her black Audi on Friday, March 9th. We know her vehicle was spotted coming back into Louisiana that night, and we know that the next day her car is spotted just north of Dallas. But investigators never find Ella's vehicle until Friday, April 1st, nearly 2 months after she first disappeared. Her vehicle is not found in Louisiana or even in Texas. It's discovered in St. Joseph, Missouri. Keep in mind, Brandon was spotted and arrested in St. Joseph, Missouri, but he is still only a person of interest in Ella's disappearance, despite being arrested for other charges in Rapides Parish. It's unclear what led investigators to her vehicle, but we know that on April 1st, officers with the St. Joseph Police Department in Missouri find it. This development comes just a week after Brandon is arrested. Here's State Trooper Derek Senegal with Louisiana State Police.
So they're going to continue to look through that whole vehicle on a more deeper level, other than just say, looking at it and confirm, yeah, that's it. Okay, what else can we see? If there's, fibers in the carpet, if there's something within the fabric on there, maybe we can get a fingerprint off of the upholstery, off the window or anything like that. So we're going to continue to go through that whole vehicle inside and out. All these things have to be put together and continue digging to figure out, what's going on, how can we piece everything together. If there is, or could be, or maybe there is someone else involved with this thing. So we just have to make sure that we continue to look and not just say, hey, we're good, we found it, and just close the case. We just can't do it that way. So we're going to continue looking and exhaust every effort that we have for this. A vehicle is just an object, just a thing, but we'd rather find a person wherever she's at. Of course, like I said, we find a vehicle that's good on the investigation part, and now we just have to continue with that. Like I say, sometimes those the evidence or clues lead to other things, like I say, maybe it could just lead to her to figure out where she is.
Louisiana State Police, who are now working alongside the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and Scott Police, say They're basically hoping to find any kind of physical evidence inside Ella's vehicle. They need to piece together what happened in the time between March 9th, when Ella left Lafayette Parish with Brandon, and now. The main question: how did Brandon and Ella's vehicle both end up in Missouri without her? And where is she now? Trooper Senegal says there's still a lot of focus on Brandon. With him now in custody, and now that they have Ella's vehicle, they hope they can finally narrow down where Ella may be. Meanwhile, people from across Louisiana and Texas and even Missouri are sending in tips to police saying they may have seen Ella. Law enforcement follow up with every tip that comes in, but there's so many tips, false sightings are beginning to interfere with the investigation, taking valuable time away from investigators. Devon Norman with the civil rights organization, the Village 337, spoke to us on behalf of Ella's family.
The family is full right now with emotion, trying to understand these new developments and what they mean or what they could mean. The family is still hopeful that Ella is still alive, but right now they are worried that all of these interactions, specifically with these being reported to the FBI, reported to the Scott Police, is kind of getting in the way of the investigation that's taking place.
Coming up, Ella's missing persons investigation is about to take a big turn. A few days after Ella's vehicle is found in Missouri, Brandon appears in court for his 2018 charges in Lafayette Parish. He's denied bond, but he's still being held in jail in Missouri, where he was taken into custody. Louisiana officials want Brandon extradited back to Louisiana, but he fights this. It does not take long, however, for a judge to send him back. On April 7th, law enforcement escorts him back to Louisiana. This is video of him being taken into booking at the Lafayette Parish Jail. Brandon didn't say anything to reporters when he arrived back in Louisiana in handcuffs and leg shackles, even though he may hold the answer to the most important question: what happened to Ella Goodie? Here's Louisiana State Trooper Derek Senegal again.
The human side of you just wants to run up and say, hey, what happened? But being at what type of case it is, and with law enforcement and person of interest, we have to do everything by the book. So we just hope for the best and make sure that she comes home to her family, because a lot of people's missing her, whether it's kids, mom, sister, brother, aunts, uncles, the whole family. We just want to make sure she gets home safe.
Ella's family is still holding out hope that she could be alive. It's what they have to believe. Friends, family, and people worried about Ella continue to do what they can, handing out flyers around the Lafayette community and joining in searches. Law enforcement is also searching for any clues, boots on the ground. Trooper Derek Senegal says Iowa is where Ella's cell phone last pinged on the cell towers. Dozens of officers spend days trekking through fields, woods, and ditches in multiple locations, using blades to chop their way through debris in 90-degree heat, looking for any evidence, anything at all that could help them in their investigation to find Ella. They're searching for anything: clothing, personal items, or potentially even human remains. By April 19th, after days of searching, officials have not found anything yet, but they assure Ella's family that they are checking everywhere.
This area right here is about a 50 square mile area, and within that area there are specific areas they are targeting to try to locate evidence.
Meanwhile, Lafayette Parish District Attorney Philip Terrell says there were 2 motions filed in Brandon's 2018 attempted murder case: a motion to revoke bonds and a motion to get the trial going, the one he skipped out on. The DA says Brandon is a dangerous person. He says they will go forward to get justice for the victim in that case, and they will do everything in their power to put him in prison. On May 3rd, 2 months after Ella disappeared, her missing persons case changes. Louisiana State Police announced they no longer think Ella could be alive.
We are transitioning this actual missing person case to a homicide investigation. Whoever's involved with this, or they can try to piece together whoever's involved with the case. So there's still a lot of questions that are unanswered, and that they are trying to figure out what's going on. We definitely feel for the family. They're still conducting interviews.
Authorities never say why they began investigating Ella's disappearance as a homicide. They keep their cards very close to their chest. Maybe Brandon confessed to something. We don't know. What we do know is that law enforcement have not found Ella's body. And Brandon is still in custody in Rapides Parish. But he is not charged with any crimes in connection to Ella's disappearance. Trooper Senegal does say they're happy to at least have him back in Louisiana now.
So now that he is here with that warrant, whatever the case may be, that they have, maybe a little bit more access to try to get to, doing questioning.
All Louisiana State Police say is based on the information they have gathered during their investigation, they now believe Ella may have been killed. But Ella's friends and family are not buying that. They hold a vigil for Ella, but not to remember her legacy. They say it's a celebration that she is still here with them. They hold candles to the sky, saying the lights represent Ella's spirit. I spoke with Ella's cousins.
What's her name? Ella Goodie. Say her name. Ella Goodie.
I believe remembering is that, so nobody forget about her. So the community can know that we're still going to keep fighting until we find her.
We all keeping her faith because we know that she's still alive, because we know she's coming back. It don't make me feel no type of way because I don't believe it's homicide because there's nobody. How could it be a homicide when there's nobody that's found? So, I don't believe it. I feel like she's in a dangerous situation. I think that somebody have her, against her will. But I really feel in my heart that she will be set free. They're going to have to let her go. But we know she's not dead. We know she's alive. I'm going to tell her that, we all miss you. We was missing you. We was all worried and, stressing. And we just happy to have her back.
After the break, an entire year passes. Months come and go, and there are no new developments in Ella's case. 6 months go by since the day Ella drove Brandon to Texas, the last time anyone saw or heard from her. Her 34th birthday falls on the same week that marks 6 months to the day she disappeared. This hits Ella's family hard. They hoped she'd be at home with them celebrating. Instead, they're still left to wonder what happened to her and why she never came home. President of civil rights organization The Village 337, Devon Norman, says Ella's family just has so many unanswered questions, and he doesn't understand why they have no answers.
How do you celebrate a birthday of a person you haven't seen in 6 months without them? You can't talk to them. You don't know where they are. You can't go to a headstone or a grave. You don't even know if there is one to be prepared. I think that it's apparent that when somebody who is not a person of color dies in this community or goes missing or vanishes out of nowhere and there's a person of interest, there's so much work to be done to make sure that we find out who it is and that that person is put to justice. That doesn't happen for us. I think the world would have responded differently if Ella was white. And if people had not seen her face, I wonder how much quicker they would have been ready to respond.
Not only is law enforcement withholding information from the media and the public, but Ella's family say they still don't know what sparked them to investigate her disappearance as a homicide. Ella's family hoped with Brandon in custody they'd get answers soon. They were wrong. It's pretty clear that Brandon holds the answers to Ella's whereabouts. While state police tell us they cannot release any information on the case, Devon Norman questions why.
And if there are answers, if he has spoken, how is it that the community does not know? It's no way. Not in 2022, not in this America. If you're in the profession of protecting and serving people, I'm not saying anybody is doing their job wrong, but maybe there's more that can be done. And I think transparency is key. If there's nothing, assure the public.
March 9th, 2023 comes around. For most people, it's just a normal day. But for Ella's friends and family, it marks 1 year since she disappeared. And Ella is still nowhere to be found. On the anniversary of her disappearance, Ella's friends and family hold a memorial.
Ella, anytime she was in her room, you felt her presence. That's her energy. She touched everyone that was around her. That's how much she loves you. We don't want them to think that just because it got quiet that she's not missed. She is. She has kids that love her. She has family that loves her. Her dad, her mom. We're going to continue to say her name, Ella Goodie.
A few weeks after the one-year anniversary of Ella's disappearance, Ella's case is turned over to the district attorney's office in Calcasieu Parish. Why Calcasieu Parish? I'm not sure. The DA's office says they will review the file and then take it to a grand jury. Ella's family says they're glad to see some movement in the investigation. Then, crickets again. Nothing happens for another year. News 10 spoke with Ella's cousin, Jessica Goodie, on the 2-year anniversary of her disappearance.
It's not easy for us to continue to go on like this. You know, we don't have a body, we don't have anything. And we just asking, when you lay your families down, your children down, y'all think of us, you know, think of her kids. It's been 2 years since she kissed her babies, since they were held by her. So I'm just saying, you know, please, if you know anything, please help us. We continue to do the best we can by them, but they want answers, and we don't have those answers for them. What do you tell them when we don't have what they need when a child comes to you and asks you those questions, and we have nothing to say because we don't have the answers?
Brandon Francisco is still in custody at this point. Ella's case is still a homicide investigation, but Brandon hasn't been charged with anything in connection with Ella's disappearance. He's only in jail for his attempted murder charge in Lafayette Parish.
We're angry because he was the last person seen with her, and I mean, yes, he was charged for something else. You know, he wasn't charged for Ella. We don't have the answers that we need from him. And we're praying that, you know, the DA in Calcasieu Parish continue to do or is billing a case and doing what she needs to do.
Finally, in November of 2024, Brandon Francisco is indicted on charges. After 2.5 years of waiting, authorities give Ella's family some kind of answers as to what they believe happened to her. United States Attorney Brandon Brown announces that a federal grand jury in Lafayette has returned an indictment, charging Brandon with carjacking, resulting in the death of Ella Goodie. I don't know how investigators came to this conclusion, but prosecutors apparently present enough evidence on this theory that the charge sticks. What that evidence is, we don't know. But we know Brandon is also charged with using a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and flight to avoid prosecution. Civil rights activist Devon Norman spoke with us again on behalf of Ella's family.
Unfortunately, we are not prepared to make a comment about the new information that you guys have received. However, we are prepared to continue to fight for Ella and with her family. And we are asking the community to continue to lift her up and her family up in your prayers as they process what this new information means for her and for them. Every time a new piece of information is shared about Ella, it does give a small sense of hope to the family that they can receive some answers that they seek.
In October of 2022, Brandon Francisco did plead guilty to his attempted second-degree murder charge in Lafayette Parish. He is currently serving 30 years without the benefit of probation, parole, or suspension of sentence. He is 39 years old now. He'll be 69 years old when he gets out of prison. But he has not yet been convicted of any charges relating to Ella. That is something prosecutors are working on right now, though. I started digging through all of Brandon's court documents relating to Ella's case. I learned this is a federal case, United States of America versus Brandon Jermaine Francisco. Right now, he's in the custody of U.S. Marshals. He's facing federal charges because all his alleged crimes happened across 3 states, Louisiana, Texas, and Missouri. Again, those federal charges are carjacking, using a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and flight to avoid prosecution. An indictment filed in April of 2025 gives a little more detail into those charges. The indictment says, on or about the 9th day of March 2022, in the Western District of Louisiana, The defendant, Brandon Jermaine Francisco, with the intent to cause death and serious bodily harm, took a motor vehicle, a 2012 Audi QT 2.0T sports utility vehicle that had been transported, shipped, and received in interstate and foreign commerce from the victim, E.G., by force, violence, and intimidation, resulting in the death of E.G. So this tells us prosecutors believe Ella was killed while still in Louisiana. Remember, her phone last pinged near Iowa. She may have not even made it to Texas. Next, we have the indictment for Brandon's charge of using a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence. The indictment says on March 9th in the Western District of Louisiana, Brandon did knowingly use and discharge a firearm, specifically a 9mm handgun, during and in relation to a crime of violence, in which this case it's carjacking. Brandon's indictment for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon is fairly self-explanatory. And lastly, his indictment for flight to avoid prosecution says from March 9th to March 25th, Brandon moved and traveled on the interstate with the intent to avoid prosecution under the laws of the state of Louisiana for a crime punishable by death. Remember, Brandon was arrested on March 25th. The grand jury further found that Brandon intentionally killed Ella and intentionally inflicted serious bodily injury that resulted in her death. An indictment, however, means the grand jury found enough evidence to proceed to trial, and Brandon pleads not guilty to all of these charges. Brandon last appeared in court on April 23, 2025. That day, he waived his right to a detention hearing, which is basically a legal proceeding to determine if he should be detained in jail until his case is resolved. I don't think he had much of a choice in that matter, though, considering he's currently serving 30 years for the attempted murder in Rapides Parish. In April, his trial date was also set. Right now, Brandon is set to go to trial for his federal charges in Ella's case on October 6, 2025. I would like to know why Brandon is not charged with murder. I believe it may be because Ella's body has never been found. To this day, her family is still searching. Ella's two children are 18 and 16 years old now. They have no gravesite to visit their mom. They cannot even have a funeral. The only person that may hold the answers as to where Ella is Brandon Francisco. And right now, he claims he is not guilty of anything. Thanks for listening.